Welcome to the Parrot Podcast with your host, Sandra, where we talk about all things parrots.
Join us for expert parrot care tips, heartwarming stories, practical advice, exciting guest interviews, and more.
Whether you're a new parrot owner or a seasoned bird enthusiast, this podcast is for you.
Welcome back to the Parrot Podcast. I hope that you are all doing great and enjoying your summer. I know that we've been enjoying summer and trying to get out into the sunshine. I've been working on my tan, being active outdoors, and I've also been taking Mia on as many adventures as I can in our bird carrier, our track pack. And we've been loving it because we've been taking Mia biking. We've been taking her on walks. I think that she's the first mountain biking bird, to be honest. And we've just been having so much fun. But with summer, we also need to be really aware of signs of heat distress with our birds and things that we should and shouldn't be doing when it comes to the hot weather. And you also want to be really mindful of what temperatures you're taking your bird out in, how much they're exercising when it's really hot, and things that we can do to prevent heat stress. And so today we're going to be joined by a brand, and that brand is Nekton. Nekton is the leading brand in high quality bird care products. And I'm so excited to chat with Leah from Nekton today. Nekton offers a wide range of supplements designed to keep your feathered friends healthy and thriving, and that includes in the heat of the summer. Their products are great for all sorts of birds. So this episode is for all bird owners, from parrots to ornamental birds to birds of prey. You can check out Nekton products on their website and get more information, and check out the whole variety of products they have on shop.nekton.de. And here you can see, if you're watching the video version, I've got a pamphlet open of the abundance of amazing products that they have. And Mia uses quite a few of their products. I've mentioned in previous videos and podcast episodes that we use the Nekton probiotics for Mia, especially when her poops start to look a little bit weird. And the probiotics are really great for her gut health and just helping to regulate everything. I also use the Nekton Biotin supplement for Mia when she's molting, when she has new pins growing in, to help her with her feather health and during that molting process, as it can be quite stressful for our birds, or stressful on their bodies. And we also use nekton-s, which is a multivitamin. And this one is also really great. And now with the summer heat, we have Nekton Electrolyte. We also have Nekton Booster. And we also have Nekton MSA, which is really great for joint and bone health. So let's jump in and chat with Nekton about these products and how we can support our birds during the summer. Leah,
Okay.
I'm so excited to have you on the Parrot Podcast. Welcome, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you. We're super excited to talk about how we can support our parrots and all other types of birds during the summer heat. Now that summer is here, we need to be really mindful of heat stress, and there's a lot of things that we can do to support our birds, but there's also things that we need to be mindful of and to avoid. So we're going to talk about all those things with you today and the supplements that Nekton makes specific for birds. I wanted to ask you if you could start by introducing Nekton and the mission behind the brand.
Yes, of course. Nekton was actually founded 45 years ago in Germany, and with a clear goal in mind, actually. We wanted to provide targeted and science-based supplements to help birds and, of course, other animals to stay healthy and strong. Yes, what makes us special, we closely work with nutritionists, veterinarians, breeders, and this way we can make sure that every product really meets the needs of the animals. Yes.
Yeah.
And every supplement is also made for specific species and needs of the animals. And it's all with careful research and testing. So
Yeah, I love that the Nekton products are formulated in a way where it's specific to specific types of birds. And you also do all this research and testing to make sure that it's safe for our birds and it's good for them. And Mia already uses a few Nekton products, and now we have a few more Nekton products that we are really excited about. But I specifically for Mia, we've been using the Nekton probiotic,
Mhm.
biotin, and nekton-s. And I noticed a huge difference when she was molting with the biotin. I feel like, the molting process was a lot better for her. And when I introduced probiotics to her, it was because her poops were looking a little bit funny. And her poops just became a lot better. And I feel like it really supports her, gut microbiome. And it was actually recommended to us by different vets, including our own avian vet. And Dr. Octavio talked about probiotics. And that's when I was like, I need to find the best probiotics for Mia. And so we came across Nekton, and we absolutely love your products. Um, I also wanted to ask you what inspired Nekton to develop these products that are specifically tailored to the unique needs of birds, and who works on formulating these products?
So birds actually have very special bodies and very active metabolisms. Their normal food is often not quite enough during breeding, molting, or times of stress like heat or travel. So
Mhm.
Nekton was developed to close those nutritional gaps between the normal food and to better that with supplements that help the body absorb these nutrients better. Yes.
Okay. And I wanted to also, like, based off of that, for bird owners who are already feeding a high quality pellet and fresh food diet, how do supplements complement rather than overlap those existing nutrients? Because I'm sure there's some people who are listening and are wondering, but what about the birds in the wild? They're not getting electrolytes and probiotics. So, what is it about, adding the supplements into their diet that's so beneficial?
Yes, good pellets give birds a basic balanced diet, as I said, but supplements actually help with special needs, like, as I said, for breeding and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
if they need extra vitamin D3, for example, or electrolytes in the heat, or amino acids, and especially during times like growth, breeding, and heat, it's just with the normal diet not enough, and we can help them with the supplements.
Yeah, awesome. Let's talk about what advice would you give bird owners on using supplements to support their birds' health? And what about during the summer months when it's extremely hot and we're experiencing heat waves now?
Yes, supplements just work the best when used as prevention. So to keep the bird strong and before the problems start. So in summer, it's important to support hydration and steady energy and electrolytes and mineral balance.
Yeah.
And it's just that birds don't sweat like we do and regulate their temperature. They pant, and through that they lose very much hydration and those important electrolytes. So it's better to, if you know that a heat wave is coming or you're traveling a lot, if you're
Yeah.
traveling a lot, then it's better to start and prevent those problems actually happening.
Yeah, that's something that we actually talk about on the podcast a lot is prevention is key. We want to think about preventing issues rather than dealing with issues that come up for our birds, and preventative care is the best care. So I love that. When it comes to the summer heat and these hot months that are ahead of us, what are the best supplements that Nectin recommends for bird owners to incorporate into their routine through the heat?
Yes, so the best three supplements we have for the heat would be Nekton Electrolyte and Nekton Booster for the best, and Nekton MSA.
Okay.
So Electrolyte, as the name says, gives the birds more electrolytes, and you can use it to prevent loss of hydration. And with booster, it gives the birds an energy boost. It gives quick energy, amino acids, and vitamins, and help the tiredness that is caused by heat. With Necton MSA, it strengthens bones and is keeping calcium and phosphorus in balance, what is especially helpful with heat and the panting I said earlier, and keep the body's mineral balance in balance,
Yeah.
like it says. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are all definitely important. And when it comes to each of those supplements, are they like all okay for parrots? Because it is the Parrot podcast, so everyone's going to be wondering, is this okay for my bird? Is it okay for a cockatiel? Is it okay for a macaw? Are all three of these supplements that you mentioned good for all types of parrots?
Yes, so we always say the supplements are good for especially ornamental birds, where your birds all fall under this topic.
Yeah.
And we have also some supplements for birds of prey, where
Okay.
it's another category. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but definitely it falls under this category. You can
And
use it safely.
okay, and on each of the supplements and on your website, people are able to find like what the dosage is based
Yes.
on their bird and like their weight.
Yes, so it's often just per weight. If you have smaller birds, and we have listed some example birds for the smaller category, and you can look up if it's a canary and your bird is approximately similar in size to a canary, then you can use this dosage, or yes. So it's all
Okay.
listed.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so now we know which supplements we should be incorporating for our birds during the summer. I want to talk about staying healthy in the heat and things that like we should be doing and things that we should be avoiding. So as temperatures rise, we know that birds can't sweat and they can't regulate their temperature the same way that we can. And so they can become vulnerable to heat stress. What are the main health concerns that bird owners should be aware of during the summer? And how does heat affect our birds?
Yes. So as you said, birds don't sweat. This is a huge thing for them, because we can really good cool us down with our sweat, and birds can't. In very hot weather, they lose fluids and electrolytes quickly, very quickly, through the panting they use to regulate themselves. And this can lead to dehydration, heat stress, and tiredness. And signs of that are actually open beak breathing, weakness, or fluffed up feathers. And if you see this, this is definitely a sign to bring your pet to a vet, or do
Get them
something
in the
about it.
shade and get them out of the
Uh,
heat, out of the sun. Yeah, if there's
yes, yes,
continued distress, you definitely want to go to the vet.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna just mention all of the different signs that I found online for heat stress so that anybody listening, if you see these symptoms, make sure that you're aware and you can recognize that your bird is going through heat stress and you need to act quickly. So, like you mentioned, panting or like open beak breathing, that is a huge sign. Their wings sometimes can be held away from their body to release heat. If they're, like you mentioned, fatigue, lethargy, weakness, uncoordinated movement, or if they just like collapse, that is in extreme cases. Lack of appetite, which is something that happens even to humans. Like when it's really hot, you don't have much of an appetite. And I think that's where the Nectin booster comes into play because it helps to replenish their vitamins and their minerals in their body when they don't have an appetite. Sometimes they can be irritable or they can vocalize distress. And in some severe cases, I think that they can also have seizures. Is that correct?
Yes. That
Yeah.
is very late
Yeah.
response. Yes.
Okay. So, what are some steps that we as bird owners can take to ensure that our birds stay comfortable in the heat and we don't get to the point of overheating?
Yes, so it's important to always give fresh, not too cool water, and change it often during the day. If it's really, really hot, better to change it multiple times a day, um, instead of just once a day. So that's very important, and you should always make sure that birds have shade and a good airflow, not that the air is standing and just, yes. And you have to keep them out of direct sunlight, or at least if they want a little bit of sunlight, if it's not too hot, don't do it for too long. And what a really good opportunity is you could lightly mist them or give them baths. That would also help to cool them down through the evaporation. And you could offer foods that are high in
Water content?
water content, yes, on lots of moisture, like fruits and vegetables. And you can obviously also can add electrolytes. They can be in drinking water, or if they want, you can sprinkle them on the foods of.
Okay,
And
so the electrolytes can be sprinkled on the wet food or put into the water.
yes, and yes.
Okay, awesome. I want to add a few things to that. With the hydrating fruits and vegetables, like think like blueberries, watermelons, red peppers, like anything that's like nice and juicy. And though when I take Mia outside, like when I'm going like biking or I'm going for a walk, then I bring her in her backpack carrier and I always put like some hydrating fruits and veggies in there, like you mentioned. And then if it's, warm outside, then I tend to actually go in the forest because if you have that option, being under trees or like a canopy of trees, it's going to be a lot cooler in the forest than it's going to be outside in the blazing sun. So that's another thing that we do. And then when we get home, now I've been putting the Nekton electrolytes into her water so that when she goes to get a drink, she can replenish and rehydrate because we've been out in the sun. Even though she's been having those hydrating foods, I still want her to be able to rehydrate her body. Like when I'm biking, I bring a water bottle with me and I put human electrolytes in there. So then now I'm like, when we get home, she should also have some electrolytes in her body. So I think that those were all really awesome tips. And you mentioned about water. Sometimes people make the mistake of, putting ice in the water or like misting their birds with ice cold water. And that's actually going to not benefit your bird because it can be very shocking for them and it can be shocking for their systems. And therefore, it could cause more stress or more issues. So I always recommend like room temperature water. And like you mentioned, like during the heat, like if it's not, cool in your home, then you want to change the water frequently. And if they're in an outdoor aviary, then you want to make sure that it's like in a shaded area and you're changing it more frequently because we know like if something is outside in the sun, the water is going to get hot. Just like in the ocean or, like in a pool, it heats everything up. So, yeah, it's important to always like be in the shade. But when it comes to like taking your bird outside or being in an outdoor aviary, or whether you're free flying or going in a carrier like Mia or an aviator harness, I also think that during the heat, you want to be mindful of going out like perhaps in the morning or in the evening because in the middle of the day it's really hot and I think it's like from like 12 to 3 or 4 is when the sun is the strongest and it's like the most extreme like hottest temperatures of the day. So I think you want to avoid those times when going
Yeah,
out with your birds, right?
yes, that's a very good call. Um, it's better to just take advantage of the times where it's not that hot, not
Yeah.
the hottest
Yeah.
time of the day. Yes.
And let's chat also about like what are the ideal temperatures to take your bird out. So generally if it's like, 20 to 25, I think oh for Mia, especially if we're going in the forest and we're not in direct sunlight, I'm like that's the perfect temperature because it's warm but it's not too hot and we're not in like the blazing sun. But I think like if it's over like 27 degrees, like if it's like 30s or the humidity and feels like 40 when there's a heat wave, I wouldn't recommend going out in that kind of weather. What do you
Yes,
think?
yes, I totally agree. You shouldn't do them. It's very much stress alone. Also if they are also not very, they're not used to it. That's the
Yeah.
word. It's stress to go out, and then the heat too. Wouldn't recommend that. So yes, early in the mornings, late in the nights, maybe, but better to just skip a
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the summertime, the sun is setting much later. Like, right now we have like the longest days of the year. And so I think that, you can go out at like 7 p.m., 8 p.m. because it's still light out, but then the sun isn't as strong and soon it's going to be setting, but it's still warm out. And Mia loves that time of the day. All the songbirds are out, they're chirping, and it's a beautiful time to take your bird out. We also want to monitor, speaking of temperature, monitor like the temperature inside your home. So there's so many things that we can do. I know that like in certain parts of the world, a lot of people have air conditioning. But with air conditioning, like it's blowing cold air, so you want to be really mindful. Like you never want to have your bird in a room where the air conditioner is blasting and it's super cold. You also don't want to have them directly in front of the air conditioner blowing cold air at them because then they're going to be too cold. And we don't want to have those extremes. We don't want our birds to be too cold and we also don't want them to be too hot. And then if you don't have AC, is there some recommendations that you have for us for people who don't have an air conditioner of how to keep like your home cool so we can regulate the temperature for our parrots?
Yes. So what you always can do is
Blinds.
blinds. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. If you have blinds during the day, close them early in the mornings and late in the evenings. You can let the air through, open every window, and let good airflow through, and so you can regulate a little bit the temperature.
Yeah.
And, yes, and as I said, it's anyways important to keep good airflow. So in those times, it would be the best to just open the windows and let a little bit of fresh air in.
Yeah.
Will also cool down a little bit throughout the day.
Yeah. For everyone that's listening, I do want to mention that if you're opening the windows, make sure that your bird is in their cage or their aviary, unless you have like nets on the windows. Like we have those nets that are like put on the windows and they're secure. So I can open the window and know that like Mia's not going anywhere because there's a net. But she actually likes to sit in front of the window through the net and like get the fresh air, listen to the birds outside, people watch, see what's happening in the neighborhood. But another great thing to have, I think, during the day is like a fan so you can like circulate the air. And we also love using blackout curtains. So we have blinds and we keep those closed because in Europe, it's not very popular to have an air conditioner. Like people have them, but like in North America, Canada, US, like air conditioning is everywhere. Whereas in Europe, it's not as popular in homes as it is in other places. So the blackout curtains are also great because they block the heat. And what
Yes.
happens with like homes is the windows from the sun get so hot and then, the home gets so hot and then you feel like you're in an oven. So blocking the windows is going to help to block the sun. You can also get like sunshades that you can put on the windows, which help block the sun as well and reflect it so that your home doesn't heat up as much. And that way you can keep the temperature indoors cooler, not only for you, but for your birds and any other pets that you have at home as well. Um, I also just wanted to chat a little bit about what things should we be avoiding? Like We talked about, avoid ice cold water and things like that, and avoid putting them in direct sunlight. But do you have any other tips of things that we should avoid?
To yes, so I think we went through a lot already. So like, don't go in the peak of the day outside when the temperatures are really high. Yes, I think that's a very big thing, and you shouldn't keep your pets or birds, especially directly next to the window that doesn't have blackout curtains.
Curtains. Yeah.
If they get constant sun, constant heat, it's very likely that they will overheat and get into heat stress. So
Yeah.
get them a nice shady area in your home, maybe a little bit further away from the windows.
Yeah, there's another thing that also came to mind, and that's like metal cages or metal perches. If you have them in direct sunlight, like anything that's metal can heat up very quickly. And, stainless steel is really good, safe metal for our birds. But when it's in direct sunlight, like metals heat up and they can like, burn our birds' feet or make it too hot for them. So also be really mindful of that. Okay, let's talk about some of the specific products. First, let's start with electrolytes because when I think of like heat and rehydrating, I immediately think of electrolytes. And I think that that is a really great product to incorporate for your birds. And I know that the Nectin electrolyte is beneficial when, they've been physically exerted, like if they've been flying around or training a lot and they're, physically exerted. If they've been out in the heat and you see, that your bird is hot or, you get them inside really quickly, replenishing, their electrolytes with this supplement, or even if they're traveling, you mentioned, like if you're, on adventures, you're traveling somewhere, it's a great way for them to replenish. Can you explain how it works and why it's important during summer?
Yes, so electrolyte gives the birds important minerals, like simple sugars like dextrose and fructose and vitamin C, and these help keep the fluids balanced and help the birds recover faster after such stress like dehydration, heat, and stuff. So that's very, very good for the summer.
Okay, and in the summer, when should we be offering it?
Yeah, of course, you could always use it as a preventative.
I was just gonna ask, so if our birds are not like, in an outdoor aviary or they weren't just free flying in the morning or they haven't been like exerting themselves physically, we can still offer the electrolytes just as a preventative.
Yes, of course. If you look in your weather app and you see the temperatures are soon rising, you can already start to give it that you prevent the problem of heat stress. You could never know if it gets higher or your home isn't that good isolated as everyone said. So you can always use it.
Let's also talk about the Nectin Booster because that was another supplement that you recommended to us. And Nectin Booster, I know, provides a energy boost and has a load of vitamins and great things in there. How does Nectin Booster support a bird's energy and health, especially through the summer months?
Yes, so Nekton Booster gives the birds easy to digest carbohydrates and amino acids and B vitamins and antioxidants, and that helps them to keep their energy when heat lowers their appetite or causes stress.
And like we talked about, like overheated birds can stop eating and they can become lethargic. And if they stop eating and are experiencing this heat stress, I think that it can also, I was reading that it can cause organ damage. So replenishing that as quickly as we can is going to be great. And I think that with the Nectin supplements, like the ones that are also water soluble, they get into their system very quickly. So that's also really important. How often should Nectin Booster be used? Is this something that we can use also preventatively or daily?
You always should use it when it's needed, like before flights, shows, long trips, or long periods of heat. But it's safe to use all year. But you don't actually need it to give it them very daily, unless
Okay.
the bird is very very active or stressed for a long time. So yeah, in conclusion, actually when it's needed, but it isn't harmful to give it over a long period of time.
Okay. So these supplements, we don't need to give them daily or all of the time. They're great as a preventative and they're a great addition to their diet, especially in times of stress or heat or physical exertion, extra training and things like that. But these are things that you give them as needed. Just kind of like in the beginning, I mentioned that I give Mia probiotics. I don't give
Yes.
them to her every single day, but with probiotics, I give them as needed. Like if I notice something funny in her poop, then I give them more often to her. But with probiotics, that's one of the things that I do give her every single week. Whereas with even with our dog, I give him probiotics every single week. Even with myself, I like to take probiotics every single week because this is something that like our bodies need a little bit of support, especially with our environment these days, the things that's in our food and so on and so forth. But like biotin, the biotin nectin product, I give that to her not every single day, but I give it to her when she's molting, when I can see that there's feathers all over my home and she has new pins coming in and she's asking for scritches all the time. Then I'm like, okay, she needs a little bit more support. So I'm going to give her this supplement, but it's not something that you give all of the time every day. And as a note for everyone that's listening, always make sure that you check in with your avian vet. If you're ever, wondering or you're not sure, then your avian vet can always, help you and guide you. Some bird owners can be also very cautious about over supplementing and they worry about, giving too many supplements or giving supplements too often. So, how can they tell if their bird needs an energy boost or a vitamin boost or they need the rehydration with electrolytes, for example?
Yes, so for a boost, you should watch for signs like less activity as usual, slow recovery after an exercise, or bad molting, or low appetite. And in these cases, booster can help birds get their energy back and faster, of course. But generally, you don't have to worry about over supplementation because you can offer them the supplements recommended portions, and the birds will consume that what they need. And if you don't give them instead of 1 gram, 5 or 10 grams, they won't have too much.
Okay. So with, supplements and all the supplements that we've been talking about, they don't need to worry about over supplementation. But if you do notice like signs like, fatigue or like less energy and things like that, I do also want to encourage people to check with your avian vet because sometimes it could just be like they need a little energy boost or they need to rehydrate or they need probiotics. But those could also be signs of, illness in a bird. So you always want to check with your avian vet first and make sure that you're ruling out that they aren't sick and that, they just need a little bit of a boost and you can provide them with these awesome supplements. Let's jump into a Nectin MSA, and this is a product that's great for their joint and their bone health. And it supports their joints and their bones. But why is bone health particularly important for birds, especially, using this product in the summer?
Yes, strong bones are important for flying, laying eggs, and overall health. And MSA gives those minerals and like calcium, phosphorus, and magnesium, plus the vitamin D3 to keep the bones strong, especially when they panting or egg laying. It can upset their mineral balance, and MSA gives that back too. And that's also very important in the summer.
Okay, so in the MSA, there's also a lot of minerals,
Yes.
and especially like if they're, stressed out from the heat or, they're breeding or laying eggs, like it uses up a lot of the minerals in their bodies, and we want to replenish those.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So Nectin MSA is great for birds of all life stages. So even if they're juveniles, all the way to elderly birds.
Yes. All birds can benefit from that. And the young birds, breeding pairs, molting birds, or older birds need this support in summer when they're in need ex- for example, vitamin D3 and the mineral changes.
Yeah. Yeah. And vitamin D3 is really important for humans, but also, for our birds as well.
Yeah.
And can you talk to us a little bit about why the vitamin D3 is so important and why it was formulated to include it in this blend?
Yes, so vitamin D3 is important because it helps the body absorb calcium from food or the supplements better. And without it, the birds can't use the calcium properly, even if they're getting enough. And this is especially important during growth and breeding or when the birds are very active and they need strong and healthy bones.
Okay, awesome. Great. So now we know all the supplements that we need to incorporate into our birds' routine throughout the summer months, especially with all the heat that is coming. I don't know if you've had a heat wave in Germany, but we've been having heat waves, and I've been hearing from friends all over the globe that it's just been hot
Yes,
everywhere.
very much.
Before I ask some other supplement questions, can you talk to us about, some of the other supplements that you recommend from Nectin for anyone who's listening?
Yes, so one of our best sellers would be nekton-s, for example, and like you also said, biotin is also very uh,
Popular?
popular. Thank you. Yes, these are some of the very popular supplements, and you can always research a little bit on our website. We have our normal website that's more a little bit of educational content, and the shop website that educates you about all the products.
Awesome. And for everybody who's listening, can you let them know the shop website and the website where they can find out all the information?
Yes, so our normal website would be www.nekton.de, and the shop website would be shop.nekton.de.
Awesome. And Necton is spelled Nekton, just
Yes.
in case. Now, when it comes to Necton products and all the ones that you've recommended today, should these products be alternated based on the need, or can they all be given like around the same time? Like, for example, like if I'm giving probiotics and electrolytes, should I give them separately, like hours apart, or can I give them together? Or if I'm putting it on me as food, like can I sprinkle a little bit of probiotic and biotin and booster, or should I give them separately?
Yes, so generally the supplements are made to work well together when used carefully, of course. For example, the electrolyte and booster are great for the summer, as we talked about it, for the hydration and energy. And the MSA adds those important minerals, especially for the breeding and growing. So they work really well together. But as we said, you use them if they are needed. So if it's currently a heat wave, I use electrolyte, and I can give the MSA with that. But if you are not sure, it's always okay to give us a call, write us an email. We are always happy to help. And
Awesome. Okay. And are there any specific tips or best practices for introducing supplements into a bird's routine? Like if somebody is a picky drinker or they're a picky eater, or I know like a lot of people message me like, my bird doesn't want to eat vegetables. So what is like the best way to introduce them?
yeah, so I would start by sprinkling the dry powder on wet food like mashed fruit. You can spray a little bit water on your vegetables before adding the sprinkle of supplements, but you can also mix the supplements into drinking water with a bit of fruit juice or another natural flavor that the birds like. But you have to look up every supplement, of course. Some are water soluble, some are not, but everything is listed on the website, so you can do that accordingly.
Yeah. So depending on like what your bird's needs are, or once you've discussed with your avian vet what's going to be the best supplements to incorporate, just like you mentioned, like if they don't want to eat vegetables or they're not eating chop yet, or they just like love their seeds and they're addicted to seeds, then try like, fruits. I have not met a parrot that doesn't love some kind of fruit because fruit is sweet and conures are sweet beaks. Mia loves fruit, like every fruit possible. So fruit is always a good option. And you can, like you mentioned, mash it up, like mash a piece of banana and sprinkle it on there. Sweet potato is also great, like if you cook it, but let it cool and then you can use the mashed sweet potato. But like with mashed foods, you also want to be mindful, like if your bird is hormonal, then you're not going to want to offer like mashed foods because it can resemble like regurgitated food and make them more hormonal. So it's just kind of like being aware of what your bird likes, what they don't like. And I find that like with Mia, when I started introducing like supplements, in powder form, like I would just sprinkle it, like you said, on her chop or on fruit. And I don't think she really tastes it because she just would eat the fruit and vegetables the way she always does. And that way it's getting into her system. Beyond supplements, what are your general summer care tips that you would offer to keep our birds comfortable, healthy, and active throughout the rest of the summer?
Usual airflow, the not direct sunlight, a lot of shade, give them some hiding spots maybe.
And I think like, when you're taking your bird out, like we mentioned, be mindful of the time of day, but think about like where you can take them because you can take them places and you don't have to be in direct sunlight. Like you can take them to the mall, maybe like if they're on an aviator harness or in a backpack, like a travel carrier, you can take them maybe grocery shopping with you. Mia. Oh my gosh. Well, Mia would like everybody to see the electrolytes that she's been taking. Um, but yeah, you can take them into the forest or like in nature on nature paths because then there's a lot of trees and it's usually cooler when you're, under a canopy of trees. So just being mindful of like where you're taking them. You don't always have to be outside or maybe like you take them to a patio, but make sure that the patio that you're sitting at has like an umbrella, so you have like a shaded area and just be mindful of like the temperature outside. And is there humidity or is there a nice breeze? Is it cloudy or is it direct sunlight? So it's just kind of like assessing the situation and assessing the weather. Awesome. And in your experience, what would you say that are some common mistakes that bird owners make when they're caring for the birds in the summertime?
Especially when it comes to the water. We heard a lot of people that maybe don't change water out enough. So when they drink, they leave some residue in the water. So the water can host a lot of bacteria that can grow that won't be
Yeah.
good for your birds. So that's why I said you should change the water not just daily, but more times a day.
Mm-hmm.
That's important. And to give always fresh food, not too cold food, as you also said.
What about for people who have their birds in like outdoor aviaries during like the summer? What are some like mistakes that they might be making or like tips that they can incorporate if they have their bird like in a cage or an aviary that's outside?
Yes, so it's obviously important to give them some hiding spots, some spots where they have shade. So, for example, you could give them some areas where they have some room to sit under to get out of the direct sunlight, and you could get a mister to mist them a little bit with fresh water that is also not too cold, but because you also said that too cold water can give them some kind of shock and get
Shock.
them more stressed.
Mm-hmm.
But that is also something that you could do there.
Yeah, because we in the summertime actually we forgot to talk about this. You mentioned misting them, but also giving them like bathing opportunities because not every bird likes to be misted. Some of them might be scared of it or not used to it or shy away from it. So make sure that you're also offering your bird like lots of bathing opportunities. Make sure you have bath bowls or like if they're in an outdoor aviary, make sure they have different like water sources where they're able to also take a bath and cool off and then, by getting wet because that is a way that they also cool their bodies down. I know that Mia, like when it's hot, she tends to take a lot more baths. And so she has like a bowl in her cage that's like a bigger bowl that she can fit inside of and she can take a bath if she wants to. So bathing is a really great way for them to cool down and offering those opportunities for them. But with the outdoor aviary, I think that it's also important to have it in a shaded area, like you've mentioned. And even like adding, a lot of like green plants in there, plants that are safe, like palms, so that they have more of that like canopy that's going to keep it a little bit cooler in there for them. And just also just being mindful of how hot it actually is outside. And if it's humid, then your bird probably shouldn't be in an outdoor aviary and you want to bring them inside. But I think that it's also good to have the option to be outside or inside. But if you have outdoor aviaries, because say it's like a sanctuary or a conservation area, then just being mindful that they have places to hide from the sun, that it's not in direct sunlight. They have shade, they have water sources, they have bathing opportunities, and including electrolytes and things like that in their water so that they can replenish their bodies. Well, Leah, it was so great to chat with you about the different supplements that Nekton offers and the different things that we can do for our birds, especially with summer now here and all of the heat that's coming our way. So I really appreciate your insight. Thank you for joining us today and thank you for sharing all of that with us. Mia.
Thank you also for having me. And it was a really nice chat.
So that's it for today. I hope that this episode was really helpful for you and helps you understand a little bit more about why it's so important to support our birds in the heat and understand signs of heat stress, heat stroke, and what we can do and what things we need to do to avoid it so that we can take preventative measures. And I also wanted to mention a couple of things that I forgot to talk about in the episode with Leah. And one of those was regarding fans. When we talk about fans, we're talking about the fans that are safe, that are standing, that you plug in, and that your bird can't reach the blades. And, you want to avoid things like ceiling fans because ceiling fans are actually a hazard and a danger to birds. And there have been so many birds that have been injured or killed because of ceiling fans. So, If you have ceiling fans that you want to turn on, then make sure that your bird is in their cage or aviary and secure, and turn them off before you let your bird out. But otherwise, I would suggest getting other fans that are going to be safe for your bird. Otherwise, there is a risk with the ceiling fans. Another thing that I also wanted to mention is that birds also release heat through their beak, legs, and feet because the blood vessels in the unfeathered parts dilate to release heat. And parrots use their beaks as thermal radiators, and in the legs and feet, the arteries and veins are close together, allowing for heat to transfer internally and reduce external heat loss or gain. And this is useful for them both in hot and cold temperatures. But as we talked about in the episode, you need to be very mindful of extremes. We don't want our birds to be in extreme heat or extreme cold or experience really sudden temperature changes. So avoid things like ice baths or ice cold water or dunking them in water or anything of that sort. You don't want to do that. You want to just make sure you get them into shaded, cool areas, help them rehydrate with the use of things like electrolytes and vitamins and minerals that they're losing when they are overheating. And like me, you might be wondering, but what about wild parrots, parrots in the Amazon or in the jungles? How are they regulating their temperatures? What are they doing when it's really hot? Because they're not getting supplements, they're not getting electrolytes and vitamin boosters and minerals to replenish via supplements. But there's a huge difference between wild parrots and our captive parrots that are in our homes and the things that is accessible to them and the things that they're doing and how they're functioning throughout the day. There's also instinctual things that they're doing. So I did a little bit of research and I wanted to share that with you so that you can understand the differences of what wild parrots have available to them versus what our captive pet parrots have available to them. So wild parrots, of course, don't have access to supplements, but nature is equipped with tons of survival strategies, and that's why they survive in the wild. So one of the first things is instinctual foraging. They seek out a lot of moist fruits like figs, mangoes, guavas. These are very hydrating fruits. For them, they also seek out nectars and flowers, which are rich in sugar and fluids. And they look for clay or mineral licks, especially in the Amazon. And this actually helps them to replenish electrolytes. So, of course, in our homes, we don't have fruit trees growing. We don't have a mango tree growing in our living room. We don't have a garden full of flowers and hibiscus flowers, for example, for them to, get the nectar from those. And we also don't have clay mountains. So these are things that are available to them in the wild, but not in our homes. So in our homes, it is our responsibility to provide those fresh foods for them, fresh, clean water that's room temperature, and incorporating supplements that are going to also benefit them. The other thing is that the time of day activity for wild parrots is important. They fly and forage during cooler hours, early morning or late afternoon to conserve water, and they rest in the heat to reduce exertion and dehydration. So they're perching up under like canopies of leaves deep in the trees. And as I mentioned, like if you go into the forest or the jungle and you're under all of these trees and leafy greens, it's going to be a lot cooler and provides shade as well. And so it's our responsibility with our birds, if we have them outdoors in, an outdoor aviary, or, we have them out on our balconies and things like that, to make sure that it's the right time of day. And that's why we mentioned mornings and evenings. We get a lot more daylight in the summertime. So going out in the late afternoon, if you want to take them on an adventure or a walk or a bike ride, or you are experienced in free flight with your birds, those are good times. And that's also what wild parrots do. The other thing is physiological adaptations. So parrots actually have very effective kidneys to concentrate urine and conserve water, and they can tolerate brief dehydration and rehydrate rapidly when sources become available. But we don't want to do that necessarily with our pet parrots, our captive birds, because the more they become dehydrated, the more dangerous it can be. And if you are noticing signs of dehydration, like they're panting for a really long time, then you need to get your bird to an avian vet ASAP because you need to get them assessed and get them the help that they need. The other thing that wild parrots do is seasonal movement. So some parrots in the wild will actually adjust their home ranges or move short distances to stay near water sources or food sources during dry or extremely hot seasons. So that's something to be mindful of, that the wild parrots do versus what our pet parrots in our homes can't do. So it is our responsibility to provide those things for them. And yeah, I hope that this episode was helpful for you. I hope you learned something. And that's it for today. We hope that you have an awesome sunshiny day, but also stay cool, stay hydrated, and we'll see you in the next episode. Oh, and one more thing. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. I'm not a licensed avian vet, behaviorist, or professional expert in parrots. The information provided is not intended as a substitute for professional advice from a qualified avian vet, trainer, or behaviorist. Please consult with a specialist for personalized guidance on your specific situation.